Welcome to the CE Pro podcast. I'm Executive Editor Arlen Schweiger. This week, CE Pro's Bob Archer welcomes back our regular video expert guests, Jason Dustal of Murideo, Imaging Science Foundation's Joel Silver, and Robert Zohn of Value Electronics. We're still early in 2022, and they offer their thoughts on new video product releases announced around CES 2022, whether mini-D and micro-LED solutions are headed toward mainstream applications, as well as the latest best practices working group's efforts to tackle ambient light, always challenging in home theater and media rooms, all on this week's episode of the CE Pro podcast. As always, be sure to subscribe to CE Pro's YouTube channel and hit that like button on our videos, or subscribe to the CE Pro podcast on Apple and Spotify and leave a review.
Hi, I'm Bob Archer, Senior Editor with CE Pro Magazine, and today I am back here with the Video Guys to do our February 2022 Video Guys episode. Our primary task today will be to recap CES. We'll also take a look at the home video recommended practices and see where that stands. Before we get into all of that, I'd like to introduce our expert panel. Joel Silver, how you doing today?
Down here in Florida, our winter is over. We had 4 days of it, so we're happy to see it behind us. And we're mobbed with tourists from your part of the world. They all escape winter, and we can't get rid of them. And they're spending like sailors, so we're happy. It's been a great tourist season for us, and it's been an unbelievably good video year. So it's milestones.
Next, we have Robert Zohn of Value Electronics. Robert, how you doing today?
Thank you. All is great. And thanks for inviting us back again today. Everything is great. We're enjoying this as our passion and hobby, as well as our professional career. I love this industry. I love the products, and I'm very interested in everything that we're doing to advance the display technology industry. It's a big year again.
Thank you. And our final panelist is Jason Dustal of Meridian. Jason, how you doing today?
I'm great. Just to echo what the other gentlemen are saying, it's been a great year so far as Meridieo is concerned with test equipment. 8K stuff is here. Our 8K stuff is out in the field and in people's hands already. So yeah, we're rocking and rolling here, man.
Okay, let's get right into this. I know you guys are bursting to start talking about this. And we will start with Mr. Silver. Joel, what did you think about the new products announced at CES 2022, including new TVs from all the big names, Sony, Samsung, LG, and Hisense?
Well, I would say it's not as massive a year as last year, even though there's no show, but it's been a year of very worthwhile refinements. And the story no one's talking about that impacts my dealers most is the price performance ratio. The size and the quality we're getting for absurdly low prices in mainstream stores. And we're also seeing at the same time the realistic approach to TVs near 100 inches from a number of manufacturers, not being the price of a Porsche, just being big TVs, which we need desperately, because the quality of the image coming our way means you can get a big picture. You don't have to be embarrassed to go large. So large without being, enormously expensive is great. And we always talked about, what's the commodity TV? Because for years it was a 42-inch. So the new 42-inch commodity TV for us is a 65.
At least.
And I talked to my folks in the UK, 65 there is also a commodity TV. 77s and 85s and 88s are the step up. And the high end now approaches somewhere in the 90s. So it's been a radically great year for big displays at reasonable light output levels. And in 22, we're starting to get to the first hurdle in the 2012 challenge, the original ITU UHD document, where they gave us the rules that we're playing in this game. How much color, how much light, how much refinement, to move to better pixels as opposed to more pixels. And we're now seeing routinely consumer price sets breaking 1,000 nits. I'm expecting to see some of the new OLED technology either approach or exceed 1,000 nits. So 1,000 nits white points with blacks is a knockout TV set. And at the same time, on the LCD side, which we're going to call LEDs, but it's an LCD, I'm seeing processing refinements. That's been the story there. Getting each individual LED to behave in a processing engine as if it was a zone, but it's not a zone. It's not a clump of LEDs. It's an LED controlled individually. And that was the IM LED from a million years ago. Hitachi days, individually modulated LEDs.
Right.
Dream. And now it's in the stores. So that's giving us indestructible sets that are pretty much immune from burn, very bright, exceeding 2,000 nits. So that encompasses the room as a challenge, just because in Florida where I live, we've got every room being a sunroom. People pay for an expensive piece of real estate. The last thing in the world they want to do is blinds on the windows. And even though blinds are huge now because of the price of motorized blinds, the battery-driven motorized blinds, you don't have to rewire the house, and the ability to make it dark to watch TV. But a lot of people don't want to make it dark. I've got one room in my house that's a serious challenge because it's right off the pool where I have a mix of little kids in the swimming pool being tortured by big kids, holding their head underwater. So I want to go out to the window, knock on the window, tell them to knock it off. I don't want to go out there because it's 100 degrees and it's humid. I want to be in the air conditioning, so I can't close it off or they could kill these little kids. So it's fun to be able to just watch them from an air conditioned room in the bright sun. And in the early days, I couldn't put a TV in that room, too much light. Now, no problem. Is it the best TV in the house? No, it's a sunroom. Give me a break. But I'm watching TV and watching the kids at the same time. So these challenges are over. Now, throw HDR into the mix. The other nice story of this year is not hardware. It's the proliferation of superb software. The launches of direct launches in the home as opposed to theatrical things. Things we've been trying to do for 15 years and failing miserably, with some wonderful companies getting buried by red tape and getting movies out. And now studios are doing it themselves. We're getting first run in the home for $30. I mean, come on, it's incredible. So we are seeing good days for software and hardware, and the newer technology is coming bigger. And in the not too distant future, we'll be talking about room size TVs. Lego things we put together on the wall. Right now, they're a little expensive, but the nature of the install of those has gotten dramatically easier. It's no longer a challenge to install them. You can install them in the front. You don't need a crawl space behind. And the prices are starting to come down dramatically. They're still stratospherically high, but the technology, as we know, one thing in consumer electronics, it's going to be less next year. So a drop in half this year is significant. So long-term future. And we had this conversation with a movie maker putting out a movie who was asking my team what the future of screen sizes for TVs are going to be. And we may have mentioned this before because it was, for me, an epic conversation. I sort of told the cinematographer, it's not a question of screen size, it's room size. We're going to fill the wall. So it's not screen size. Whatever the room is, that's going to be the size of the screen. So we're going to have the big screen on the wall for wallpaper or multimedia or all these things. And as we approach these modular TVs at very high prices, they get to be real, people seeing them, and the prices will one day drop to where they'll be affordable. So this is an indication of where we're going. So as we get to 1,000 and 2,000 nits, and I was talking with Robert and Jason just a few minutes ago, we have to remember that in 2012, we wrote the rules for this system. And we're excited about 1,000 and 2,000 nits, but the system's built around 10,000 nits. And it's built on colors that we are not going to see for a while, but this system has headroom. We're going to grow into it one exciting step after another. The only thing disappointing for me right now, I've been waiting around for my 120 hertz Super Bowls and football things. And it's taking longer than I expected, as everything always does, sources. But as we bring in HDMI 2.1 to the mainstream market, we're paving the way for the 120 hertz sports to come our way. So it's chicken or egg, or chicken and egg, but put the TVs out there, it'll do the 120. Put enough of them out there, we'll get the software. So that's what we're doing right now. And before we finish, I'd like to spend a minute or two talking about what seems to be unbelievably confusing in HDMI 2.1, but HDMI.org is making it simpler. And it's going to work. And Jason's put together a chart we'll try and get to of a new way of talking about what the bandwidth is in HDMI. And it's from HDMI Direct. We've used to have 3 channels of data in the HDMI plug. And the golden rule for us is don't change the connector. Leave it alone. We've got billions of them running around. Change the way it works inside, which we've done. So instead of 3 channels carrying data, we now have the potential for 4 if the system warrants it, and it's transparent to the end user. Just buy new components, and that fourth channel that's doing something else becomes a data channel, and there goes your 120 sports right around the corner. So we're getting there. So I'll let you take it from here, Robert. It's going to be an exciting time.
Thank you. Thanks for passing it over. It's okay for me to go next.
Absolutely.
Well, to me, the biggest upgrade year we've seen in the last decade has been the 2021 model year that we're still in the middle of selling right now. But I was very impressed with a select few models of 2022 from the premium brands, particularly with the advancements in mini LED, video processing, peak lumens capability. The new QD OLEDs coming in from Samsung and Sony looked incredible in image quality and advancements in overall performance. So I think there are certain categories that are progressing very rapidly in advancing the technology of display. And overall, most of the product didn't do a lot for me. But if you select the ones that, at least I feel, are very far advanced for 2022 model year, it's going to be a big year for those models. And just yesterday, we got in a 98-inch mini LED, and we put it up butt next to the 100-inch full array local dimmed. And we had some video experts with us and some YouTube channel celebrities. And we did a side-by-side comparison of these two world's largest televisions. And boy, they're both gorgeous. They are gorgeous. And there are differences that we can easily see. And I don't want to bore everybody with them today. But it's amazing to see the prices, as Joel said, the sizes get much larger. The prices go down, the quality of the picture go way up. This is a very exciting time for new TV technology. This is a great time. So if you're thinking about a new TV, this year and the next model year is a big upgrade year, and just select the models that match your use case. So you get, like we spoke about, the Florida sunrooms. Pick the TV that matches your use case, and you will be in video bliss.
Robert, thank you.
I have plenty more to say, but if that's just a brief overview.
Okay, thank you. And Jason, your thoughts on CES 2022?
Not a whole lot to add here. Joel and Robert pretty much nailed it. I'm always fascinated too about how they do things. And one thing I thought that was really cool is on some of the newer OLEDs, the way that they're able to make them brighter with the new cooling system or the new heat sinks and whatnot, the new materials you're using for that. Also too, I'm hearing that the new panels are going to be sometimes 30 to 40% lighter. So that's good news for the installers of the world out there who have to hang these TVs all day, every day. We've had TVs already matching and exceeding P3. We continue to see some more expansion on that. I know Hisense had something that they were claiming 95 or 97% of 2020. So that's all really cool. But as Robert said, this is, I was actually looking at maybe getting a new TV this year. So that hopefully tells you something.
Yeah.
Jason, can I ask you a question based upon what you're
Absolutely.
doing? And,
Sure.
The listeners may not know, but Jason's still an active calibrator, and he's probably got conservatively 5,000 TVs under his belt.
It's a lot. Yeah.
And how are you seeing in improvements in how well expensive and inexpensive TV sets have been calibrating in the past 24 months?
Oh, yeah. You know, we're seeing some brands, one in particular off the top of my head, that the calibration controls work so well that every single adjustment you make is small enough to where you can absolutely nail your targets. And that's something that we were dreaming of just a few years ago. So the controls are getting better. We're hitting the targets even better. We're getting flatter responses for things like gamma and grayscale. A lot of the features that we're seeing in CalMan specifically with some of these automated calibrations, we're seeing grayscales and gammas being dead flat and nailed in 4 minutes with a fairly fast meter. So the controls are getting better. The results are getting better, and it's getting easier to do it too.
Well, our theme song for the last zillion years has been be accurate enough so you can see what the creator of the content wanted you to see in your home. So when you're saying you're flatlining it, I'm going to say it differently. It's going to look the way the creative artists wanted it to look.
Yes.
When they deliver it to you, not some blue, green, orange, brighter, dimmer version that's distorted. Some of these you're finding are approaching reference monitors for consumer prices.
Yeah, and again, this was a pipe dream years ago, and I worked on a TV Monday evening a few nights ago, and if I had seen those results from that consumer TV 4 or 5 years ago, if I had just seen the results, I would have said, "Oh, that's obviously a professional, $30,000 monitor." No, this was a sub $2,000 TV that anyone can buy anywhere. So to your point, yeah, we're starting to see some numbers and some pictures that we would only had dreamed of on a consumer panel just a few years ago.
Yeah, and we're seeing Canada knocking it out of the park with calibrations. Probably one of the best served markets in the country is Sweden.
Yeah,
Media market there is just doing a wonderful job, and all the other media market areas are catching on quickly. They're seeing how easy it is to calibrate, what the customer reaction is. Yes. The other thing they've noticed is the return rate basically is zero. Happy people don't return TVs.
Right.
Get it work properly, you adjust it the way it's supposed to look, and the people are like thrilled. So it's a nice way of doing business on a consumer level. We couldn't have dreamed of this 5 years ago. They were just too hard to work on, and not all of them came out so well.
Yeah.
Jason, you seeing this in sets in the $500 to $600 range too?
Yeah, there's a few that are sort of diamonds in the rough that you kind of wouldn't expect to do as well as they do. And I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big bang for your buck, high value kind of guy myself. So I can confidently when friends and family and friends of friends, they reach out and they say, hey, what TV should I buy this year? You ask the typical questions about room lighting and those types of things. And I can confidently these days suggest to them or recommend to them lots of TVs that are under $1,000. That seems to be a good price point now for most people. But even in that $500 to $700 to $800 range, we are seeing some awesome little TVs.
Yeah, so this is healthy. Rich or poor, you can get a good picture. You don't have to have high-end budgets to get a good picture now.
Right.
Okay, guys. My next question kind of dovetails off that last one. You guys had alluded to these technologies and talking about CES 2022, but do you think that mini LED and micro LED are working their way towards becoming mainstream consumer video technologies? And Jason, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so it's a great question. And, this has been kind of on the hot plate for a few years now, and, who's going to win? And, I don't think there's going to be a winner. I think they're going to live next to each other, along with things like OLED. But as Robert had mentioned before, there's always a use case. People come up to me and they say, what's the best TV? I say, I don't know. What are you going to be doing with it? But with these new technologies, we're going to be able to go huge on the size. We're going to be able to get really good black levels. In fact, the first LED backlit LCD I ever dealt with, Joel knows this TV well. We'll go back to 2007 or 8. And at the time when that TV had 550 zones of dimming, we were like flabbergasted and just shocked at how many there were and how well they were controlled. And looking at like a TV now with mini LED compared to that one back then, it is, I mean, it's not even a close contest. But when you look at the price of that TV back in 2007 or 8 versus the price of the TVs now, those are astronomically different as well. So I think the more and more they become popular, of course, as always, the prices come down and they get more kind of mainstream. And then the micro LED, I'm starting to hear more and more stories about those going into people's homes. We have a very good calibrator friend of ours. He called me a couple of months ago, and he was working on a giant micro LED, as Joel said, a tile system in a high rise in Manhattan. And he was just gloating about how bright it was and how colorful it was, even though he was surrounded by windows in basically downtown Manhattan. So they are becoming more mainstream. Prices are dropping. More and more people are aware of these things, and we're only going up from here.
Robert, how about from your perspective?
Well, we are seeing for 2022 more brands adopting mini LED. We're going to see Sony with the X95K, which is a 4K HDR mini LED, the XR processor, second generation, brighter panel. We are seeing also more micro LED from Samsung in particular, going down in size to an 89-inch, dropping prices nicely. But for micro LED, which is emissive display, individual LEDs, just like an OLED, but with LEDs, I think we need several years away before we're going to see them become affordable, become higher resolution in the smaller screen sizes because of the fixed dot pitch. So I think micro LED needs a few more years ahead to become more affordable and more mainstream, but it is headed that way and moving that way. Mini LED is also gaining more traction more rapidly because it's been more around a little bit longer and a little bit more affordable. So yes, we're going to see more mini and micro LED. Yes, we are. And better product and better pricing, more affordable pricing. So that's a good prediction.
Awesome. Thank you. And Joel, your thoughts?
Well, we've been watching this product category for quite some time. And on the commercial side, of course, it's been around forever. And it's an effective tool coming into the theatrical, residential, corporate boardroom side. This has been the year where it starts to cook, where things have gotten better contrast, colors under control. Processing is very difficult with these products. It takes massive amounts of computational power, which we now finally have. It's going to be part of our future. We've been expecting it to be better, cheaper, sooner. And thermal management remains an issue.
Yes.
And getting it into homes, keeping it alive. On the commercial side, we used to have an entire hall at the International Systems Europe in Amsterdam, which ran for 10 years. And a few of us in the press would make it a point to get there day one, go look at the newest offerings, and then go stop at the end of the show and see how many of them had dead pixels over the 4 days of the show. So many of these products were so overdriven they couldn't survive a trade show, let alone a long-term relationship with a client. So they were just being overdriven, competing with each other. And it was one of those rooms where you needed sunglasses. You had 40 and 50-foot walls in an entire convention center being overdriven, something fierce. So one of the products we've been dabbling with is tuned for 1,000 nits. And the actual cubes themselves will do between 12 and 1,500 nits. They're delivering it as a 1,000 nit device. So there's plenty of headroom. They're running it very conservatively. 1,000 nits, when you're talking about something that's 15 and 20 feet wide, it's a pretty impressive picture. Yeah. They're making inroads into the marine markets where it's a spectacular solution. There's one racing sailboat, a carbon fiber racing sailboat that's going to get a huge screen in the galley, and there's no windows that have coverings. All the windows are bare. And this is designed to be in the Greek islands, be in the Caribbean. It's places where there's not a lot of movie theaters to go to. And it's a huge screen that's one whole wall of this. And when you're dealing with a carbon fiber racing sailboat, budgets are not really an issue. The boat itself is a beast, and one person runs everything with a mouse. So this is computational power for racing, let alone the TV. But after they're done racing and putting it all together, take a shower, go turn a movie on, you've got a spectacular screen. So we're seeing it in corporate environments. One company, California-based, just bought 110 of them. So the price dropped significantly. And one of my dealers at 110 sales is going to have a very busy this year. And I don't think he'll finish them this year. And this year is kind of fresh. I don't think he'll get it done. He may not be able to get everything delivered and installed, but corporate people looked at it and said, put it everywhere. We don't need blinds anymore. Throw the blinds away. We don't just put it everywhere. This is what we're using from now on. And that's going to be in every one of their meeting rooms, boardrooms. So it's refreshing. Now that, of course, is a successful California company who can afford it. But the inclination from the non-technical person to look at that and just be floored and simply say, like the guy in the sailboat, I can have that now. I can watch movies in the daytime. Yes. And, this is one of the dream technologies. It's going to be expensive for a while. Thermal management will require a couple of breakthroughs, which we're good at. So there's a lot of work being done, a lot of money being spent, and this is going to be a very competitive product category for a number of years. Declaring winners is going to be impossible because they can leapfrog each other. This has been a big year for the walls, and they're starting to trickle themselves into commercial and residential. I mean trickle because of the pricing. But, Mr. Archer, you've seen this coming for a very long time. We've dreamed about it. We've written about it. We've seen them. We've drooled over them, and they're here. I don't have the income to justify one, but when I'm looking at something, when I leave a trade show and I'm lusting after a product I look at, that's a hell of a show. If I come home from a show and there's nothing I want to buy, I'm bored. Whether I can afford it or not, as long as I see things that drive me nuts that I have to own, whether I can afford them or not.
Yes.
And I'll say the same thing for Mr. Zohn and Mr. Dustal. We go to these shows, and I'm in it for the toys, guys. I mean, there are lots of things I could do.
Oh,
I'm in
yeah.
it for the toys. So when I'm going to a CES or a trade show, I'm shopping for my toys. I'm looking for something dramatically better than the one I have, and I want to take it home. And I'll figure out how to make it work. Maybe not immediately, and some of them, not for the long term. But this is for me the acid test. When I'm having dinner with my friends, and we're all saying, "Yeah, I want that." When we are driven to buy it, you've got something. And with size, scope, dynamic range, and that's the challenge: getting good blacks out of these things to really, really bright, without cooking them into failures. There's work to be done here, but we've got some of the top engineers on the planet on display.
Yeah.
We're a big market. We do hundreds of millions of products. So breakthroughs translate into significant income streams, and the challenge to making them work is competitive. So these are coming, but we've been expecting it for a very long time, and we're impatient. We want everything perfect tomorrow and affordable tomorrow.
Yeah.
It takes time. And if we look at what's happened with the OLED market, for example, it was a breakthrough as a technology, and it was expensive, and it was fragile, and it was unaffordable in big sizes.
That's right.
So it's toughened up. It's gotten a lot brighter. It's gotten a lot less expensive. And we're going to see that with the next 2 generations of LEDs as well. They'll get more affordable. They'll get bigger.
Yes.
They're already pretty bright, but they'll get blacker. So they'll get more dynamic.
Yes.
And they'll break less. So right now we have to run them very conservatively. But if we're talking eventually getting to 10,000 nits, we're not doing that with OLED. We need the LEDs to get us to 10,000 nits. And will we get there this year? No. Will we get to 2020 color this year? No.
Mm-mm.
Will we get there? Yes. We wrote it in 2012, and we're nowhere near done with that system, but we get better every year at it. So this has been entertaining, and putting these things together, the next challenge, and it's happening on both the audio and the video. And Mr. Archer, can I talk a bit about that for a second?
Yes, that's a perfect segue into my next question. I wanted to ask something that we discussed back in December. How is home video recommended practice standards progressing?
Quickly, with a weekly call now.
We're going weekly, yeah.
Mr. Dustal is our co-chair on this.
Mhm.
He's the youngest co-chair in the history of the CTA and CDS, so congratulations on that. He's a kid. He drives us all nuts, but he's had a lot to do with the success of the HDMI design and verification. So this is going to be also design and verification, but on different parameters, not functionality.
Mhm.
Both the audio and the video committees are working together like we've never worked before. These were both originally home theater audio and home theater video. And since dedicated theater is a minuscule percentage of our installations, it's just going to be video.
Mhm.
It's just going to be audio. And as an audio hobbyist, not a professional, I can tell you when I'm looking at a typical L-shaped room with the kitchen hanging off the side of the room with the TV hung and the speakers around it, getting that to sound good requires some talent.
Mhm.
And we're going to be writing an audio recommended practice that's going to incorporate the best way to make things work in lots of different rooms with challenges and all. And we've both agreed, both committee chairs have agreed, we're going to follow the same format. It's going to be performance driven. The performance in both audio and video is going to follow 4 categories, with absolute state of the art and best bang for the buck being the top and the bottom, and the in-betweens we're going to struggle with, but as committee chairs, we'll define our job. We try and get the smartest people on the planet to join the committee, put them all together in a room and let them fight it out. And that's what we're doing right now. Right now, we're just fighting out the definitions.
Yeah.
Something that Jason and I have been teaching forever.
Yeah.
And we talk about, video parameters that tickle the eye. What do we see? And we've said for a million years, the first thing we see is dynamic range.
Absolutely.
How black is a black, how white's the white. That's the single most important parameter. Second after that, are the colors saturated? Are they old-fashioned 709? Are they P3? Are they 2020? And we used to have 2 categories for this: color accuracy and color saturation. We're combining them just to color accuracy.
Oh, good.
So there'll be 3 parameters. And the fourth one's resolution. And we're going to have a simple definition, and then we're going to get into all the parameters like, what do we see in a room that makes us say this display has great dynamic range. And Jason on the last call was talking about, well, let's not talk about the display. Jason says, let me talk about the room.
Yeah.
If I've got white walls and a 12-foot glass coffee table in front of my TV set, I've got some work to do.
Mhm.
And the walls are going to limit us. And we also work with Avixia on the contrast standards on the commercial side. And they came up with a brilliant solution for defining contrast ratio by the job that the video system is doing. Now, they were talking projectors. Now they're talking every type of video system. So they're saying, are we just doing data? Am I reading equations to math class? That's okay. That's easy. I can do 7.5 to 1 contrast ratio. Or am I looking at pie charts? I want more. Or am I looking at industrial drawings of a submarine? I need a lot more. Or is it a training video with live motion video? So we're going to incorporate some of those parameters into the consumer side, because as much as we've spent years developing standards based on DCI for commercial theaters, since the high 90 percentiles of the consumer electronic standards are in rooms with challenging light environments as opposed to controlled light environments. And Mr. Zohn, would you say it's way over 9 out of 10 sets that go into homes with challenging light?
Yes.
And
It
less
is.
than 10% go into dedicated theaters. And I know I'm being very
Yes.
conservative, but it's
It is
far
about
less.
that number. But
Far
we
from-
advise our clients on light control in the room, and we win most of the time. We don't win all the time.
But we don't win. But nationwide and globally, most of the time there's light in the room, and
Yes.
we don't have a standard or recommended practice for light in the room. Our recommended practice is for dedicated theater. So
Mhm.
this one is going to be performance categories. Now, on the
Good.
top performance category, if you don't control the ambient light, you can't make it. Period.
That's
Yeah.
right.
The
That's
physics just get in the way. But
right.
since 90+% of our systems have light in the room, we're going to lean on some of the Avixia commercial technology, because there are, probably 99% of the commercial applications have no light control. For us, it's not that high, but it approaches it. So we're going to have 4 categories for performance. First and last are easy. Middle one's going to be tough. On the audio side, we're doing the same thing. So they're in the process right now of defining parameters. So we were hashing it out with some of the brightest people in our business, just defining what dynamic range is in more precise terms than we've ever done before. Because this is not aimed at the Robert Zahns of the world, who's in the 2 percentile doing the job that needs to be done. This is aimed at the 98% of the dealers who are not doing aspirational systems.
Right.
They're making a living, they're doing fine systems, they're taking care of people the best they can, but they're not putting in $250,000 systems. They're putting in mainstream systems. And this recommended practice will cover them as well. So with 4 different levels, if I have a badly designed room for video, how do I make it better? So I can do different screen technologies. I can do video walls. I can change what we used to call gamma, the EOTF. I'm not going to use a theatrical type EOTF. I'll use a gamma or an EOTF that's designed for bright light in the room.
That's
And
right.
if the room is going to wash out the color on my TV set because there's light in the room, I'm going to have to artificially enhance the color to compete with the ambient light. And that's reality. That has to be dealt with. So these will be real world standards that are going to be applicable to every install, not the 2% at the top. So we've changed our gears entirely from dedicated home theaters to just everything having to do with video. So it's a challenge. That's one of the reasons we're meeting weekly instead of every other week. So Jason's got a lot more work to do.
Yeah.
We've got a number of writers in the industry who are helping us with grammar, punctuation, doing things. I've got a couple of editors I've worked with, and then we've got an ANSI committee that we have to answer to, because some of the things we're saying, well, you gotta do that. You gotta do this. And in an ANSI recommended practice, there's no must, got to, there's should. You
Right.
should do this. It's a recommended practice. It's not a law. You don't go to jail if you don't adjust the calibration of the TV set. I mean, you haven't done an honest job, but you don't go to jail. You should calibrate the TV set. You should establish the lowest level of performance. So between the ANSI committees we have to answer to, the manufacturers we have to encourage to build things to deal with difficult rooms, and the integrators, which is the focus behind the recommended practice. So this is going to be an exciting video and audio one. And the audio committee is chaired by a friend of ours who makes, arguably one of the best surround sound processors on the planet. So they're aiming quite high.
Yes.
And we've got a brain trust on the audio side, people from Dolby, people from DTS, and we have them on the video side as well. So the talent pool I've got in this committee, I am proud just to be in the same conference with.
Wow.
Jason, would you say you've learned things from these guys?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's been incredible learning from some of these folks. And, it's people, me being an enthusiast and, you keep calling me the young guy, so I'll take it. But, a lot of these folks,
I mean, it's not arguable. That's fine. We have metrics for that. We can measure.
Yeah, we can measure that. Yeah. I'm working with people now who I used to read about. And, I'll just say it like this. I'm working with some of my heroes, and it's a dream to me. And I'm super happy to be part of it. It's a decent amount of work as a co-chair for sure, but we do it for the love of it. And it's been really good. And I'm super proud of the last paper we wrote. And this one's just going to be, this one's going to be really cool as well. I do want to add one thing about the product categories and the stuff that Joel was kind of mentioning before. We're even in discussions right now of talking about outdoor systems. We have people.
It's big business.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, Joel's in Florida. He's south of me. I'm very close to the beach up here in St. Petersburg. And we're constantly seeing people doing these really big, bright, awesome outdoor TVs. We're seeing a lot of folks that do movie night with an inflatable screen and stuff like that. And that stuff's just so much fun and really cool. It's nice to be able to watch football while you're sitting in the hot tub, stuff like that. So we've definitely have expanded, as Joel mentioned before, from going from just talking about dedicated home theaters to now talking about what we're sort of calling entertainment spaces. So that was a big step. I think everyone's gonna be able to.
It was so much easier when we dictated control of ambient light.
It was way easier.
And one of the things I learned, we were dealing with the marine application. We were designing a system that's on the back of a rather sizable boat, and the owner was very specific with one request. He goes, "I want a translucent screen." Okay, let me make sure I understand the question, sir. You want a screen that can be viewed from both the side on the boat and outside the boat, looking back at the boat? Absolutely, it's exactly what I want. And why do you want that? He goes, because this is going to be a very big screen, and I want all the other boat owners, the harbor, to eat their hearts out.
Yeah. There you go.
This is fun. He's having a ball, and he won't be the last person to do that. He's going to be the first one in his harbor. But I've got people doing pop-ups outside of pools. The typical cheap TV hung on the side of the building by the barbecue. That's so done. We can get some really good pictures outside. Now, you're not going to put it under direct sun, but if you put it under the eaves, and there's not direct sun on it, with the amount of light that Robert described coming out of these TVs, we can do a respectable job outside. Yes. So outside TV is going to be a challenge to get to the lowest quality or lowest performance parameter, but we're going to get there. There'll be a recommended practice for doing your outdoor sets.
Yeah. Just to add to that, the two largest growth categories that I see in video is outdoor televisions and ultra short throw projection systems. Those are the two largest growth in percentage of growth, because they started small. So since the percent is small, to get a large growth out of it is not that hard to do.
But also, those categories, UST in Asia, the UST has been a big item for 5 to 6 years.
Yes,
it's just starting to show its head here.
Especially with Hisense for that enhancement as well, for that growth.
But it's a challenging technology with the angle the lens has to do and the projection of the ambient light. It's not an easy thing to design, and I will tell you, some of the designs we saw at a shootout we did with them in Beijing, these were some of the worst displays I've seen in a very long time. Thankfully, they don't come here, but they meet price points in Asia that are impossible to meet, and they're delivering a big, bright, colorful picture. Right. I'm not going to say more about it other than it's big, bright, and colorful. Don't ask for anything else, but they're reasonably priced and they're big, bright, and colorful. Yeah. And what you're seeing coming into your store is the very top of the market.
Yes, thank you.
They're still challenging technologies. That wide angle lens,
yes,
they come in two categories. They come just okay and god awful expensive.
That's and right. Okay, that's correct.
It can be good. It's not an ultra high end system, but it's not 50 grand.
Yeah,
and it's 120 inches. It's in the teens.
So, I also wanted to add that it really warms my heart to see a guy like Joel Silver and you, Murideo, embracing viewing television in high ambient light, because this is new for you guys to do that.
No, I've been doing it. I'm sorry, Robert.
Yeah? Am I wrong?
90, yes, 80 to 90% of my installs have been media rooms since day one.
I know.
I live for the dedicated room where I can get the 99th percentile picture quality, but that's not my life as a calibrator. I mean, we're dealing with ambient light, and I'll give you
Yeah.
another kicker. Every time I design a dedicated theater, we put a sports mode in, because in lifestyle, there are times when I am sitting in the theater, focusing on the screen
Yes.
and immersed in the movie because the system is there and the content is there. And then the next day, I bring my friends over, we drink some wine, we're watching football, and I don't like the team that my friend is rooting for, and I'm going to throw something at him, and I'm going to pour his wine. I need lights in the room. First of all, I'm throwing popcorn. I don't want to hit him, and I want to pour wine and not get in his lap. So I've got settings in my dedicated theater for sports that incorporate some ambient light,
Yes.
because that's
Very.
a social event. It's a different use category. It's
It
not a
is.
dedicated me watching the screen, telling my friends shh later. It's yelling at each other and having a good time and drinking and eating, and it's a sports environment. So even in a dedicated room, for
Thank
years
you.
I've always done a sports tuning. It's
Yeah.
part of what we do. So the high ambient light conditions, 80 to 90% of what I calibrate has an alter ego, a night mode, a day mode. And if you look at our
We go.
certification spec for televisions, it's been day and night modes since Pioneer Elite.
That's right. Now, with all that said, we advise every client that every television looks better when you can control the ambient light in the room. But still, we're accommodating for higher bright luminance viewing. But we still
It's their
recommend.
TV, it's their lifestyle. They're going to tell
That's
me
right.
what it's going to
We
be when they
can't
watch
change
it, and it's my job to make it work.
That's
And
right.
but I also know sooner or later when they're watching the daytime, I can depend upon the sun going down every day.
That's right.
I'm comfortable thinking every day, and I'll have a different button. And if there's an automation system, it's going to change by time and by month. So I'll go into a different mode in the evening automatically, which is great customer service. That's what automation is for. I don't want to tell my customer at 4:42 the sun's going to go dim. Take it out of ISF day and put it in ISF night.
Mhm.
Mhm.
At 4:42, the TV is going to just change it. And a different time of year, it'll change it at a different time of day.
Mhm.
And that's the service we want to provide for people's lifestyles. Because
That's
if they
right.
want the daytime experience, I make it work. But that
That's
experience won't work at nighttime. It'll be too bright.
That's
The
right.
EOTF will be wrong. The colorimetry will be wrong. And it'll be too bright for your eye. It'll be fatiguing. So
Yeah.
it's our job to, number one, conduct an interview to figure out where they watch, what they watch, how many people they're going to have in a room, which determines viewing
Right.
angles,
Yes.
whether it's a dedicated sports room or a dedicated movie room. So I think what's really lacking in most of our integrators' lives is the communication skills to just interview the client and simply ask him what he wants, what he's going to do with that. Are you gaming? Are you doing photography? Are you watching sports and movies? Are you watching gong shows? And this is more important to establish for system design
Mhm.
than budget or room size.
Yes, it is. Thank
And this comes out of Avixia. Case, what are you doing with this system in this corporate boardroom?
you.
Is it a
Right.
math thing? Is it a dictating thing? Am I doing submarine design? Am I just looking at pie charts? So it's the Avixia type solution heading into residential. Tell me what you want to do with this display. When do you watch? What do you watch? Do you look at your kids' pictures on here from time to time? And as a photographer wannabe, one of the things I do with all my clients, take some of their photos home with me, come back, re-edit them for 3840 by 2160,
Beautiful.
plug it in USB to the side of the TV set. When a little kid sees his face up there 4 times the size of his head, laughing, that's a moment. And
Yeah.
that's how they should be watching the photographs, not on their iPad.
Thank you.
They've got a high-end display, the photos go there, the games go there, everything goes there.
That's
The only thing
right.
that doesn't go there in my mind right now is VR, which we'll talk about in another call. But there was a very funny story yesterday, in all places, the Wall Street Journal. It was from VR to the ER. And it's about all the people who have broken faces, fingers, and necks boxing with the VR glasses on and hitting the parts of the room or their girlfriends. So this VR thing we'll talk about another time. It's coming.
Yeah.
And it's primitive, but Mr. Archer, somewhere before we're done with the series, we should touch on AR and VR because it's also been, around the corner for years. But when the hospitals are seeing people being admitted because they were playing with some immersive environment and they broke
Yes.
the glass on the mirror and they got to get stitches, this is not funny, but it is funny. So it's just showing, and that's launched. It's getting there, and look at the money behind it.
Mm.
we can certainly look to tackle that topic. As a matter of fact, not to plug CE Pro, but I'm going to plug CE Pro. One of the 5 technologies to launch for 2022 we picked this year was VR.
And it's exciting. But the technology from my eye is fatiguing at the moment. It needs to be more dynamic, the processing needs to be better, all of which is happening. And it's going to be a competitive segment. And it's another use case, another place where Jason will have to learn to calibrate those things. Robert will have a room that will set up where people won't kill themselves. He may have to put up felt walls around there so he could do a demo without them falling down and going to the hospital. But it's another entertainment category that's up and coming. And it's going to be based on the same principles and rules of video, incorporating the same 3 parameters of excellence, and we'll have different performance and recommended practice for those guys too. So we're not done. We're just warming up.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, guys, I would like to say I think this episode for today is done. We've covered quite a bit today. I would like to reconvene in about 6 weeks, and we can continue to tackle the topic of the best practices that you're working on, and maybe we can get into some other relevant items that are of focus in the industry right now. But I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to come online and speak with us at CE Pro today.
Well, we appreciate the platform to be able to talk to your readers about what we find exciting, because Robert's sitting here grinning, he's having a great year and he's having fun.
That's correct.
And we were talking about his new projector for his house before this call started, which brings us full circle. I mean, he hasn't put one of these ones I'm recommending in, but when he puts one in,
it's over.
It's over.
It's over. It's over. Yeah.
Sorry,
sorry, Robert.
Robert's going to be a very expensive install for you.
That's okay. One more minor issue to please add at the very end. I am an advocate for good ecological practices. And I've been on the backs of the major TV brands to be more friendly to the environment. They have a packaging with big styrofoam that's not recyclable. The TVs are made with the wrong materials that are not friendly to the environment. Well, this is a big year. Thankfully, they credited me properly for being such a nuisance to them. For I'm involved in picture quality enhancements for a couple of the companies, and they finally gave me credit saying, okay, we listened to you on the environment. And now the TVs are lighter, as Jason was saying earlier, but they're also very friendly. They're not going to hurt the environment. So thankfully, they finally took aim at taking care of making these TVs more environmentally friendly. So that was the last little comment I wanted to add.
And maybe that's a topic that we tackle for a future episode, because Samsung, Sonos, I'm thinking off the top of my head, all within the last couple of months have announced new eco policies.
That's correct. Samsung and LG and Sony as well are all involved in that. All are.
That's great to hear.
They've made big changes in packaging and the construction of the televisions.
That's awesome to hear.
The EU5 community would have mandated it had they not done it.
That's correct.
Yeah, and they were going to mandate bulbs out of existence by de jure. And the UHP lamp is not a very good thing for waste dump. And the LED projectors and laser projectors that give us 50, 60,000 hours worth of use instead of 800. It's much friendlier for the environment, besides being a better technology to watch.
Yeah. Maybe now that we're getting good BT 2020 coverage, percent of color gamut, I want to see more. I want to see some content. So we got to get on Hollywood's back a little bit about
patience. Can't be one technology. It's got to be all.
No, I don't have patience. I don't have.
On this one, none of us do. But I've seen 2020 content from Disney.
Gorgeous, huh?
Again, you don't want to go leave the room. You want to stay in there and not go back.
That's right.
And from P3 to 2020,
huge step. It's not little. Yeah, it's not a small difference.
But you're talking major production difficulties, and the math is not done for the transfer functions between BT 2020, 709, and P3, and that's got to be done. If you're mastering in P3, that's already roboticized to drop it down to 709. Yes. None of the work has been done on transfer functions from 2020 because there's not enough content. So it's not just the camera and the production, it's detuning it to the billions of TVs out there that don't do 2020.
Right.
So there's no move to roboticize yet because there's no product. But there will be. It's part of the game.
Okay.
Again, 2012 games. I understand your impatience, but
Yes.
it takes a while.
Yes.
Well, thank you guys, and have a great day. And I look forward to our next episode in a few weeks.
Take care, and hopefully the storms leave you alone up there.
No, we don't need any more snow.
You have plenty already. Take care. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye-bye now. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.